So we have a jam-packed working / training working convening for us this morning. And so we're going to jump right in. We're going to sort of skip over the formalities and we're going to do lightning round introduction. So I'm going to ask Sarah if she could just kind of walk us through that table. We're going to start with right when you have your mouth full. 10 seconds or less, folks. It's called lightning round introductions. Name and organization. You all have a copy of a few things on your table. One of them is our agenda. Like I said, we have a jam-packed agenda, but it'll be less presentations and more conversations with each other. At your tables, you also have a few other items. You have a summary notes report from our first convening this year in February. Many of you participated in that first convening, but you didn't have to participate to be invited here. Invitations really were focused on organizations that this academic year or in the last academic year have had service learning students and or academic interns through our office placed with you. And then for this convening, we had a targeted invite of folks that may have research interests, and I'll talk a little bit more about that aligned with our university priorities around the public good. Next slide. Context for the day, and I'll then thank you for the toolkit. So today really just, we're focusing on three things. One is building on our conversations with some of you that were at our first February convening. You spoke, we listened. This is one way that we want to reflect that we are responsive to what our community partners are sharing with us. And one of the things that was shared with us, we're actually going to use two, but one of the things that was shared with us is how do we do two things better and more often? Leverage our students as assets and resources around service learning, academic internship, and research opportunities. You spoke, we listened. Second was, how do we build and develop new partnership opportunities, things that we haven't thought of before, doing collaborative projects. And then you had many ideas. If those of you that were here in February, remember we had that big thing on the wall and we had like 50 great ideas. So we focused on two today, right? One is research. Many of you had identified that you either have data, need program evaluation assistance, technical assistance, want to go after grants and funding opportunities with our university. How do we do more of that and do it more efficiently and effectively around community identified needs? The second thing, or not in order of sequence or chronology, a second thing that we heard from you is more trainings and hands-on educational experiences on our campus. All of you said that you wanted to come back to campus and then highlighted some areas that you wanted to work on your organization with respect to the resources and some of the assets that we have here on campus. So today is also a mini training on community-based research. Lastly, and I'm so glad that Robin is here to join us, we've been having conversations on campus around the public good and advancing partnerships for the public good. Our hope is that we compile notes from today and that we share it and disseminate it with our campus stakeholders and help guide our decision making, our thinking, our planning around partnerships with and in our community. So you do serve a vital role. You are a targeted invite group to us. When we talk about partners at the university, you're here today. Not just providing opportunities for our student, staff, and faculty, but actually advancing work that we also believe is critical in how we serve our communities and work with our communities. So that's what we're doing here today, focusing on research, identifying more areas of potential collaboration and partnership, and shaping university community agendas around community good, around community needs and opportunities, but also building on community assets. So thank you for being here this morning. Okay, we're going to jump right in. So one of the opportunities that we have here is directly with students. Students are our biggest assets here in on our campus. So we have the pleasure of welcoming Director of our Office of Undergraduate Research Services, which includes our our Undergraduate Research Opportunity Program. We have a lot of acronyms here on campus. Elisa Aparicio is our director, and so she's going to sort of open up this morning, kind of sharing more about what kinds of opportunities we have here for undergraduate research. So without further ado, Director Elisa Aparicio.
Hi everyone, thank you Juan so much for inviting me today. So it was really great when Juan asked me to meet with him. We had a great conversation. I said, yes, I want to be a part of the space. It's a great opportunity to involve our students, particularly as first or second year. So get them involved very early in research.
Awkward moment number one for me is, Elisa, I forgot to tell you that I was going to pass a microphone to you, just so that we can capture you.
Right, there we go. Okay, here we are. So I'm going to start overall, what is the Office of Undergraduate Research Services? So it was established in 2016, and it really is the goal to develop new programs, initiatives that promote the goals of the institution. Additionally, we work in collaboration with staff, we work in collaboration with faculty, we work in collaboration with other programs here on campus. While my office oversees 2 programs, we have a lot of other institutionalized and federal programs, McNair, LSAMP, RISE, BUILD, DDI, Ascend. I'm thinking of, just kind of grants that are coming in because of the faculty that are getting these federally funded grants. And then additionally, it's about the long-range strategic plan, right? How can we develop program implementation? How can we collaborate with folks on campus? Overall, the goal of the office is to really disseminate different opportunities to students and to really disseminate these opportunities at an earlier time point. And we're talking first years and second years. Many of the time, these opportunities have really focused on our third and fourth years. Maybe students who say, I want to do grad school. Undergraduate research is not only for students who want to go to grad school. Excuse me. Every student should have the opportunity to participate. It allows students to solidify career choice. It allows students to network. It allows students to get involved in the community, right? So we do have current projects that are with our community. We have one going on with Cabrillo High School. We have one going on with the Long Beach Department of Water with a faculty member. And it's a great way for them to network. And it's a really great way for them to maybe realize, I don't like research. And that's okay. If they can figure it out at an earlier time point, I think that is beautiful. That's what we want. And how can they take the skills that they're learning and transfer them, right? Being open to different things, being open to work. Maybe sometimes it's getting involved in something that moves us as individuals, right? We want to give back to our community. We see ourselves doing stuff with a community or with a different space. Sorry, I'm getting used to this microphone. So again, why research? It's hands-on research experience. They're in close contact with faculty. This creates a sense of belonging, a sense of I belong in this space, in a lab, in the fields, collecting data, running focus groups. I bring knowledge to data analysis and so forth. Acquire professional experience for future and career opportunities. Many of the students who participate in undergraduate research that's first and second years will tell you, nobody told me I could do this. And this has opened so many opportunities for me. And again, not around graduate school only. Many of the students who have come in go on to work at nonprofits, they go on to work into career, industry work, or they go straight to the professional route. And then develop those critical thinking and problem solvings. So it is a big lift for some of our students, newly exposed to research as a first and second year. But that's where a program like Ours Connects and the Undergraduate Research Opportunity Program comes in. They're paired with a peer advisor. They have staff who are supporting them along the way. We definitely have students who are like, I think I'm way in over my head. I don't want to do this anymore. Let's have a conversation. What's going on? How are you feeling? I'm not communicating well with my PI, with the faculty. They're not responsive. And so we work through that. Okay, let's craft an email. This is how we're going to approach it. This is how we're going to have the conversation. It's okay to feel scared, right? When we're talking of a position of a faculty member, we think of them as an authority, right? Particularly first and second years. So how do we empower a student to also advocate for themselves in this space? So the first program is the Undergraduate Research Opportunity Program, or UROP. As Juan mentioned, we have a lot of acronyms here on our campus. So they participate with ongoing research in scholarly and creative activities. This particular program is open to first and second years, and we do require them to enroll in a course in the fall semester for 1 unit, and then to enroll in spring also for 1 unit. And what they're going through here is, what is research? What is library tools that you can use? What is IRB? What is quant? What is qual? What are mixed methods? What's an abstract? What are conferences? How do I submit to a conference? The faculty projects in this program are reserved for the students who are coming in through UROP. Everybody gets paired with a peer advisor. A peer advisor is a past UROP alumni, so they have been on the other side of it. And the peer advisor really plays a critical role in the retention of the student. Many of the times, it's that peer advisor who is saying, you know, this is how I navigated that experience with a faculty member. This is how I navigated that experience when I was part of a research team. When I wasn't sure how to approach something that came up. Let's work on that together. Let's craft an email. They follow up. So we are very intrusive with the students. We're very hands-on, proactive, to really, you know, get them that sense of belonging in the space and working with a faculty member. There are limited opportunities for transfer students. We have paired with Build with an HRPG health research related group, and that will be ending next year because of the grant. And this is an opportunity for students to use their federal work study. So they use their federal work study as first and second years. The different thing about this program is that typically federal work study will end once the award is finished. Once the award is finished here, our budget kicks in. So we're able to keep the student on. They can utilize the max of their award. Sometimes it's about $4,000 for the year. We will continue to pay so that they remain for the full academic year as part of the research experience. At the moment, we're paying $16.50. Every year we go up about $1. So we're really trying to stay up competitive over minimum wage. We know the benefits of keeping students involved on campus and work, keeping them involved in their community, and really work that's really shaping them or impacting who they are as an individual. And then Arts Connects is for all undergrads are welcome. It's for all disciplines. We help facilitate the placement with a faculty member, and we're helping with things such as resume, cover letter, monthly workshops. This is more of a volunteer experience. We don't have funding in this program. Something that we do have is we offer hours participation certificate. So when they complete certain modules, certain hours, they will get a certificate of participation. Another way that we work to see if students can get funding is how do they broach the conversation? A faculty member might have some grant funds. So maybe that's a way that they do it. Another way is to do an independent study with the faculty member. Or something new that we have on our campus is the Learning Aligned Employment Program. And so we have partnered with that. Students who are eligible for the Learning Aligned Employment Program will get paid. I think right now I've heard it's about $7,500 per semester that they can get. They can work up to 20 hours, and there is a scale about $17 to $20 an hour. So, but it is dependent on eligibility. Financial aid determines that. We work closely with them, and that's how we're able to get some additional students funded in this program. So examples of some of the research activities, so there's just a few. We have library research, faculty are working on book development, course development, laboratory research, community-based intervention research, survey research, and performing and visual arts. So the research is happening across all of our colleges. That has also been a big thing that we've been approaching with our office, is that research happens outside of STEM. It's not only the sciences. It certainly is a little bit more heavier given the funding, right, that our institutions go after and what the push has really been around STEM. But there's a lot of stuff happening outside of STEM that is really important and critical work, and that many of our students want to get involved in. So these are just examples of some of the research projects. These are just some of the titles. Growing up in a path-ethnic suburb, implications on second-generation identity, residential choice, two-spirit realness, indigenous film, gender, and healing, student loans and credit cards, financial literacy, and behavioral study. So every year we have anywhere from about 80 to 100 projects that are submitted by faculty. And as we tell all faculty, we always have more faculty interest than we do students, at least students that we can fund. So and faculty will also be very creative about how can we fund them, how can we give, if it's a stipend. So they typically will write some of that stuff into their grants, and we'll find a way to get them paid that way. And for both of our programs, for Europe, it is a requirement. For Ours Connects, because it is a volunteer experience, we highly encourage our students to participate in our yearly research symposium, which happens during the week of RISCA in April. I think it's a process that many of our students are very nervous about. It is their first time presenting a poster, getting up in front of an audience. They are concurrent presentations. The faculty members work with them to develop these posters. We invite the faculty, staff, friends to come and see the students. And the nice thing about this is the reminder is the posters look very different. Some look what we would think of our traditional poster, abstracts, methods, findings, recommendations. And some other posters aren't quite finished because that's where the research is. And so that's what we remind students, right? We're not comparing what our poster looks like because you might be at the very beginning stages. Maybe you're just in that initial data collection. What are the hypotheses? What is driving your research? What is the literature telling you right now? And what are you all looking to work towards with your faculty member? So this is a really neat event that happens, like I said, every year. I think every year we hear from students of like, that was great. That was really cool. All these folks came up, they were asking me all these questions. I was able to do my 2-3 minute kind of elevator talk with them. So yeah, this is really, really great to see all of our students be able to feel really, I think, passionate and accomplished that they were able to do this. And so that's it for me. Here we have our website, the Office of Undergraduate Research Services. As I mentioned, we oversee Ours Connects in Europe, but on here you can find all the different resources with regard to other undergraduate research programs that are on our campus, the way that we partner. When I spoke to Juan about this, I thought, what a really great opportunity to get students involved in the community, right? There are some projects that really speak to students. Some of the students are really looking to, where can I make change in my community? How can I get involved with things that, you know, motivate me as I aspire to go down this direction? And I think that this could be a really, potentially a great partnership for students here at Cal State Long Beach. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. Thank you. So we know you have questions. We want you to intentionally keep those questions because we want to build off of those questions for our morning conversation. So save those questions, and then we're going to have some activities to help us along. So as you heard, one of the things that we do on our campus, and arguably one of the things that we do very well on our campus, is research. One of the underlying goals for us for today is how to be better partners with you and our communities in terms of research projects, research activities, research questions. How do we leverage our relationships and partnerships and sort of focus some of that research and some of those resources on opportunities to partner with you in our communities on research areas. So another item that you have, and I intentionally didn't highlight this, is a community-based action research toolkit that a faculty member in sociology, Dr. Issa Saeed, worked with our center to put together. So it's there as a reference for you. Stella already pulled it out and is looking through it. Because we're going to use some of the concepts this morning that are in your toolkit so that you don't have to feel like, oh, I got to remember all this stuff, write it down. A lot of what we're covering this morning is in that toolkit. We intentionally designed it to be accessible and usable by other faculty on our campus that would be interested in developing community-based action research projects with our communities. So you have that as a reference. We also have a couple of other goodies for you. We wanted to show our appreciation for you making some time this morning. So got a little swag there, a mug and a notebook, but also our appreciation for all the impactful work that you do in and with our community. So again, Elisa will be here this morning, and then we'll have some conversations, and we can follow up also with if you think of some stuff after today. So without further ado, building on this underlying goal of how do we become better research partners with our communities, I have the honor of introducing someone that I've known now for, I want to say like 15 years, Dr. Saro. Dr. Saro and I had the honor of serving on a planning steering committee 15 years ago for an initiative called the Building Healthy Communities Initiative as part of a privately funded 10-year, $100 million place-based initiative around the social determinants of healthy communities. And at the time, Dr. Saro was the executive director of KGA, which we'll talk about a little bit today. So again, part of our underlying goal of becoming a better research partner with our community partners is highlighting examples of community-based action research that has already been done in our communities. And when I had this initial conversation with Dr. Saro, and again, this is a 15-year conversation, it was around how do we leverage this huge jewel that we have in our community called Cal State Long Beach around the work that we were doing 15 years ago and that all of you are currently doing, right? This isn't a one-time thing through your organization's missions and visions for healthy, vibrant, thriving communities. And we didn't have a good answer, but we sure knew that UCLA and USC and UCI were in Long Beach doing these things. So we've asked Dr. Saro to sort of cover two things today. Give us a sense of what her community in Central Long Beach, what are some opportunities to leverage partnerships and research? What are some of those issues that we could leverage research opportunities around? As the councilwoman for Council District 6, CSULB, if I may, Dr. Saro, brings with her 2 decades of community-based action research experience to this role. And again, like I mentioned, headed a critical community organization that did so much work and continues to do so much work in Central Long Beach. So I've asked her to wear 2 hats. One is drawing from those experiences from 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and then how do those experiences help to inform and shape her role right now as an elected official representing the needs, the issues, the concerns of the residents of Central Long Beach. And then talk about sort of a project that while she was at KGA, she worked on in partnership with UCLA so that we could use it as a reference point of the kinds of research, collaborative research opportunities that we can think through this morning. So without further ado, if you let me call yourself a friend, CSULB Saro, Councilwoman for Council District 6 here at in Long Beach. So.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. So he's very nice in his formality, but I'm, from the community and have been doing work as he shared. So let me just share a little bit about my background. As you can see from my bio, I am a daughter of refugee genocide survivor. I came to the U.S. when I was 2. We arrived first in San Diego, but came to downtown LA because that's where work was available in the sweatshops for my parents, as well as many other Central Americans that came, right? So I grew up in that environment. I was really lost in the school system and somehow ended up going to UC Santa Cruz to get a bio in molecular cellular developmental biology because I had a friend who was going to college. So I went where she went, right? So just because of that, I was able to go on this pathway of higher education. Obviously, I didn't stay in science because I thought maybe becoming a doctor was the best route to helping the community when I realized it's really actually an organizing and community work. So while I was at KGA, I got my master's in public administration. And then while I worked for Senator Ricardo Lara's district office, in the district office, I got my doctorate. So I always felt education is really important. And part of, after I became a labor organizer, I went in Seattle, I came down to Long Beach to become the executive director of My Girls in Action when it was really in its startup phase. So during that time, just a little bit, and then I'll go into overall, there was a lot of question, right? You're all doing this work today because there's a need and the issue you're addressing that's not, not met. And that's kind of where I think it begins, right? So let me kind of give some context around Central Long Beach. Again, I pulled this information, like research. We all need it in order to set some context and a reason and why we need to do the work that we need to do to improve conditions, lives, but also empower residents and leaders in our community, right? So this is kind of more from what I did when I came in as a district dialogue. It was during the pandemic, so I wasn't able to meet with people in person. But what we did is did things virtually. So we just kind of gave people a sense on the status right now. We know that, based on this, CD6 has one of the, as you can see here is the map, but with redistricting, it's a little different. It's, but it has some of the worst public health ratings in California and high rates of cardiovascular disease like asthma. The other is that, during the pandemic, CD6 was hit hardest in communities that was already struggling with, cardiovascular issue as well as other disparity. It really just compounded and lifted up even more what was challenging. And the other is that rent. Renters in the CD6 are already paying over 30% or more of their income to rent, and I think all of us do, right? But it hits the central area a lot more harder. And as a result of that, we do see increased homelessness, and there's a significant population with limited services as compared to other parts of the city but that's part of where it tells me, well, what's my role? Also as a council member, as you are, knowing that there's disparity in your area of work, what you're doing is a solution to solving or addressing these major issues that we face, maybe not directly, but indirectly. And park needs. We have very dense, limited open green space, and we have, in CD6, we have one of the lowest amounts of parks and open space compared to the broader LA County area, right? The other is that we've had the highest recent unemployment claims compared to other parts of the city. Again, the statistics, is not surprising compared, just as I've been sharing along the different disparity. So this kind of summarized a little bit about what I wanted to do is yes, I had a pulse on the district and the resident, but I still wanted to get feedback from residents and business owners themselves, doing a really quick surveying well, what is the most pressing issue for you right away? And believe it or not, one of it was trash. I was surprised because I assumed it was going to be rent, it was going to be economic development issue, but the highest, and this was done throughout the whole district, virtually, talking to people also in person, and they shared that trash was the major issue during that time. I think it continues to be, but I think it was more so because everyone was home, right, and you were just in that environment a lot. So from there, it gave me a sense, well, what are the most immediate things we had to do? So I just wanted to give you a sense on that the statistics hasn't changed. What I've shared with you, maybe the numbers changed, but there's always been legacy, disinvestment, and disparity in Central Long Beach. And that's ultimately why I ran for office, was how do I utilize the experience that I'm going to share with you within a massive bureaucratic system, which is, the reality of just sometimes working in government, working in academia. It is very frustrating to want to make change immediately, but what I am very interested in is how do you at least begin doing that and figuring out where are the pathways that you can do it. And the number one way is doing it together and having more tools for us and then for you and your constituents to be able to have that as a tool and feel empowered to be able to say, I have a voice, I have data, and you have to listen to me and give me money to do what I want, right? That's all of it, not just one or the other. I have a voice. I have a voice, I'm going to use it, it's important, and I have a solution, and you need to give me money, right? In the end, the key is getting the funding to do the work. So that's where it became was, when I was running KGA at that time, I had no data on, well, what are the experiences of young Cambodian people. I don't know the state of their mental health. I have data that was off of refugees that first resettled here, but there was no stats or information. So whenever I made these I fill out the proposal for your grant, like you do your statement of problem, right? I would always use those old data, but I had no relevant data, and I wanted to do things that were for young people. And sometimes funders push back. It's like, well, what are the stats really going on with young people? I'm like, I don't have it, right? So for me, as somebody who's kind of used to figuring out things because I don't have things immediately in my hands, is, well, I'm gonna find it, and if they don't exist, I'm gonna create it. So that's what this was about. I was like looking and asking around, is there a university at that time? This wasn't available. At least I didn't know at that time back in 2006 to partner with a university and a student to help us do research. So I looked around, and then UCLA had a community partnership at that time where they provided grant funding to nonprofit. I think it was $150,000 a year for 2 years. So I don't remember. It's about that range, I think. And part of that requirement was you had to find a graduate student that was a UCLA student, and then a professor that was going to be able to kind of oversee the project. So how that happened was I had a board member who's a UCLA graduate student. And so I talked to her and asked her, hey, can you talk to your folks at UCLA a little bit more about this program? And so we worked together on the application, and that she would be the student.
Was she Dr. Barbara Kim?
No, Dr. Cindy Sangalang. Oh. She is now a professor at UCLA. So she's really come back to where she started as a student to now being a professor there. So she then was willing to guide and allow youth. So because she was a board member, she understood how our organization functioned, right?
What is KGA?
Sorry, Khmer Girls in Action. I shouldn't have made the assumption everybody knew the acronym. Thank you for asking. So, and that's kind of where it started. It was really based off of a relationship. It's like, who do you know? Who else do you know in order to be able to figure out a good partnership? Because it's really important at the end of the day for me that the student that we were going to bring on knew how our organization culture was, and that our priority is ensuring that everything we did was youth-led, because it's really, in the end, they're the most impacted to be able to lead the research on themselves and with each other, right? So while that was great, it was really hard because while I think Cindy, our grad student at that time, was willing, and then she found a really great faculty person who was really flexible, I had a lot of pushback from staff at that time. I had a lot of pushback because as a nonprofit, we felt really, we had a culture where, we don't need anyone. We're like the community, and we're the ones that are the one that knows our community best, and people should just believe us, right? Yes, I feel the same way. I felt strongly with them, but I had to go through a process in where, yes, I know that UCLA is an academic institution that has historically marginalized communities and not seen them as value, right? Or use them for research study in order to advance their career. But I think what I wanted to do is I had conversation with the grad student as well as the professor in our office to talk about, well, where are commonalities? Like, in the end of the day, the people from UCLA are real people. They don't necessarily represent the institution, but they're here to help us and work with us to give us the tool we need, right, in order to do the research. So that happened on a regular basis, the tension that exists. So I had to keep finding a way that would make staff comfortable to train our youth to do the research. So how did that happen? I brought another party in to be the in-between somewhat between UCLA and our youth and staff, and that's the data center. They don't exist anymore, but they were a great partner because they actually, their mission is to bring research to community, teaching community members to do research on their own and having it be credible. And so they came in and helped us create curriculum for staff to train young people to do data, develop the question for the survey, collect the data, and then analyze the data. So I actually have some copies of these curriculum because they're really, it's for everybody. Like, it makes it so accessible and understanding around the curriculum that Data Center helped us create. Obviously, yes, this is what worked for us at that time because I didn't have any other tools, but I just wanted you to get a sense that these are curriculum that we created specifically high school students, so it can be modified for anyone who just kind of are scared of research in general, is making it fun. And so the goal of the research that we was trying to figure out, okay, like what you're gonna do, like research idea, what are we gonna actually do, right? So we ended up deciding that it was really to examine the emotional well-being, health, and safety experience for Cambodian American youth, as well as explore other factors that may be related to their outcomes as individual, family, school, and community level. So we went through a process to doing that. And what was really important for me was making sure everyone always felt comfortable along the way. So as we did it, it was like, okay, are we ready to move to the next step? Okay, we're good. Let's work out our struggle. Okay, then we'll move to the next step, right? So through that process, sorry, I got to this point where it's just a lot of text because I forgot a lot of it. So I just put it here as a reminder. But also for you to share just some of the more technical is that, we've done a lot of qualitative data like storytelling, doing digital storytelling. But it was the first time that we collected quantitative data at a scale where it was more than just like 100, right? So they were able to do 5 focus group that was led by the student, but we also did 502 surveys that were disseminated and collected by the youth themselves. And we paid them. That was the other thing. We paid them through the grants that we had. So that's part of what was important, is that we also valued our youth's time. So we spent a lot of time training and collecting, and then the results were disseminated through a report in 2011. By that time, I'd already left, so what I'm sharing with you was just my experience of what it took to kind of, I guess, partner with a university, but the hard conversations that we had to have and some things that we had to work through. So basically, in the end, it became that was a long time ago, that goes to show, back in the days in 2007, I think, or 8, but that this is the research that was really in the end for us to develop programs to refine it that works for young people, but also to use it as a way to create campaigns. Eventually the group used it to do a student wellness center campaign, or student wellness or youth wellness campaign. And then it continued to be a source of study because the graduate student continued to incorporate this in her dissertation. And then I was able to be what do you call them when you're a co-author?
Co-PI.
Co-PI.
Principal investigator. Or co-principal
Yes.
investigator.
And I didn't even have a master's at that time yet. So I was like, that's cool. And then the research continues to be research upon this process, and it can still continue to still be studied. I had gotten a call, hey, we want to talk to you about the study. I was like, that's a long time ago, are you sure? But that's kind of where hopefully this experience is just helping to inform how to make it easier for you all to figure out what to work for you. Obviously, there's no one way because it depends on who you're serving, right? So basically, lessons learned is you have to build consensus on the value of the partnership with academic institution within your organization. That was very clear to me before we could get started with the staff, with the board, and obviously with the youth. Youth and constituent-driven process requires time, dedicated staff, and just funding, right? Lastly, partnership requires consistent communication to build trust and success. And that's what I mean. It's like working with the staff and youth constantly to just check in. Are we good with this process? Are we ready to go next? So that it's not just what traditional research is. It's not sterile. It's really personable, actually. It's really personal for us doing this work day in, day out, spending your time and weekend, right, running your nonprofit or working within the work you do. So, shortly speak, I feel like it worked. Like our first run at it, not everybody actually is successful the first time around because of the way up, many things can go wrong, but it ended up working out in the end, and the research still kind of pays off to this day for the organization, I believe, and I'm really glad that that's what I was able to contribute, right? So that's it. Hopefully it didn't take too long and kept your attention.
Perfect.
Okay, great.
And it's a great transition to where we're going, so thank you so
Wonderful.
much.
Yes. I think I left another report. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So again, keep those questions sort of slow cooking in your brain. So I think one of the things that Dr. Saro highlighted that really is going to ground this next part of the agenda. So a couple of presentations. I said we weren't going to spend all of our day with presentations today. We're going to take a deep dive. And as you heard, community-based participatory research, action research, isn't a research method in and of itself. It's a broad set of values, principles, commitments based on the acknowledgement and understanding that communities, in this case our community partners, have assets, talents, expertise, that the university is not the only place of enlightenment in the world. And that when we approach research, historically universities, just gonna be honest, have a history of doing research on communities, particularly marginalized, disenfranchised, historically underrepresented communities, rather than research with communities. So for us, the rest of the morning is, how do we define what that research with communities looks like? What do we take into account? How do we uphold our values, principles, and commitments around communities have a wealth of knowledge, expertise, gifts, talents that actually benefit our university in terms of our specific campuses' commitment around the public good? How do we determine when we're fulfilling that vision and mission? Well, it's a partnership with you and the community members that you work with and that you serve. So the rest of this morning for us is building out that vision from your lens, your perspective, your experience. And again, I mentioned that it was great to have Robin here with us in the room, because this is what we're doing on campus. Simultaneously, the timing could not be better for us. So again, the value that you all bring, I really am encouraging you. We need to hear from you the rest of this morning, because you'll see a butcher paper that we put up here. This is really shaping our research ideas here on campus. I mean, you heard it from a student sort of centered lens from Elisa. You heard it from a potential collaborative project lens in terms of funding, in terms of leveraging our mutual resources and assets. Well, we want to begin to sort of define what those research areas may be and may look like. And so the first acknowledgement for us is you all have data in your organizations. You all manipulate data. You all collect data. You all do data analysis in the delivery of your services and programs. So we have to start reimagining what we mean by data and science and methods and surveys. Elisa talked about qualitative, mixed methods research. Those are all fancy terms. You all have expertise in these things. So our first deep dive here, Dr. Taylor is going to lead us through a reimagination of what data is and how we can utilize data to shape our research agenda. So Dr. Taylor.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Dr. Asaro. I think that's just a great, to echo what Juan was saying, a great example of what a partnership between Cal State Long Beach and the community could look like. So just to start off, just an overview of what data are, what data entails. It's a collection of facts, any measurements, any feedback from people, observations as a source of information. And I think oftentimes when we think about data, we think numbers or we think surveys. I want to try and provide some additional ways to think about data sources. Okay. Oh yeah, that would be great. Thank you, Juan. I don't have to stand back there now. Some additional data sources that we can think about. Of course, numbers and surveys are data sources as well, but there are some additional examples that might spark ideas of what you maybe already have or would like to have. So I have a few examples I'm going to go through. I have a couple slides with examples. As I'm going through, maybe it'll spark some ideas for you. Also, who is your audience that you're wanting to share the data with as well? And then that kind of leads us into the what and the why. Ultimately, what are you wanting to use the data for? And then that big picture question, what is the overall purpose or goal of collecting and using these data? These are questions that should kind of help inform and drive those decisions you make around data. So I have an example to share, and this is actually an example from you all. Some of this might look familiar to those of you who were at our first convening. If you remember, so this photo up here on the top left, when you RSVP'd to our first convening, we had some survey questions that we asked you to respond to. Who do you serve? What issues do you address? So we collected survey data from you. We also collected geographic location data. We asked you, can you click on this map and tell us where are your services? And then for those of you who were able to attend our first convening in February, some of these photos may look familiar. We did a lot of small group discussion, kind of small group focus groups where we had people sitting at your tables. We had note takers. We wrote down all the ideas you shared with us as a data source. And then we had larger group discussion as well, where you shouted out ideas. We wrote them on the big butcher paper, on notepads. So we had a variety of different data sources from you. Can you go to the next?
I'm all excited about the data.
Yay. So what did we do with it? We combined all the data from you and we analyzed it, came up with themes. So what were you telling us what are the strengths and assets that are in our community? What are the needs you're sharing with us? We came up with those themes and we put together this convening summary that everyone has. So that's one way that we shared data from you. We shared it with the community and we shared it with people on campus to let them know, hey, we have strengths in the community. And our community partners are also saying, these are ways that we'd like to further partner with you. So we have an activity. What I would like us to do, everyone should have some scratch paper and pens at their tables. I just went through a variety of different data source examples, and that wasn't exhaustive either. There are other data sources that I didn't even have listed up here. I would like everyone to take a few minutes just to kind of brainstorm with yourself. I have 2 questions I'd like you to brainstorm and jot down any ideas that come to mind. First, think about what data does your organization currently have? It may be data that you're already analyzing or using, or maybe some ideas were sparked as I was going through different examples that you haven't thought about before. So jot down any types of data that your organization already has. And then my second question, are there data sources that you don't have but you need or might like to have? So what you have already and what you would like to have. Let's take a few minutes individually to just brainstorm, get all your ideas down, and then we'll discuss together in our tables and our small groups. Okay, thank you everyone. I think we'll move on to our next section in our day.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. So I want to build off of this notion of impact. We all know that the work we're doing has impact, right? But what does that mean and for who? Who is benefiting from your efforts? Who are your target populations? What are the issues that your respective organizations are addressing through your missions, right? All of you are mission-centered, mission-driven organizations, right? And so I'm going to push here a little bit. I'm going to kind of run through something that Dr. Sorrow stated, something that our director of ours in Europe stated, and some comments that I made in between those presentations. For us, it's about how we do research here. And how we do research is informed by what is the purpose of this research. And for us here today, it's to impact the communities and the issues that all of us collectively are trying to address. We are in a process right now on our campus of identifying grand challenges where we can leverage the assets in our university, expertise, we do research, right? Students, all of the high impact practices that we know work around areas that benefit all of us, right? The public good, grand challenge. All of you, to some extent, whether it's environmental justice, recidivism, sustainability, education, housing, youth development, I can go on and on, right? Through your organization, fair trade, right? Global logistics are addressing grand challenges or areas of grand challenge. How do we leverage what our work, our mutual efforts are advancing around the data and the research that we know will have impact in these areas and will further help to advance? So I want to focus on community-based research, not as a method, but as a set of values, principles, and approaches that get us to that purpose of impact, right? So this is different than what historically we have thought of as a university as research. I mean, Suli mentioned that in 2006, she didn't even know if our campus or anyone on our campus was doing this kind of research. I was here in 2006, Suli, I was doing. I'm just playing. Right. But the point here is that we are also building institutional capacity to be able to do this kind of research in terms of who we're hiring, in terms of what we're prioritizing, in terms of how we're strategically thinking around where we're going to deploy and how we're going to deploy the gifts, the talents, the skills that we have here on our campus, and leverage those around your gifts, talents, expertise. So here's how I want to sort of introduce this idea of community-based participatory and action research. It's an approach to research that seeks alternatives to how we've thought about science or research or what that should look like. I'm going to pause there. It's a shift to how we're thinking about science, the scientific method, lab work, data collection, research design. So it's not a method in and of itself. It's an approach based on a set of values, relationships, understanding with communities. That's the commitment with you and the communities that we work in and that we serve. So community-based action research, participatory research can take on all kinds of different methods and approaches. The emphasis here that we emphasize community-driven inquiry. Inquiry is just a fancy way of saying questions, right? We emphasize that the research should be based on questions, issues, things that your organization is advancing and or questioning and or impacting and or addressing, right? Irrespective of what that looks like on the ground floor, that would help to inform and shape how we're thinking about doing the research and for what purpose, right? That's a powerful, powerful tool that I think we have not yet maximized. Our partnership with you and how we approach addressing grand challenges, big issues, systemic poverty, educational disparities, environmental racism, our unhoused communities, inequities and disparate outcomes for our LGBTQ plus communities, right? All of the work that your organizations is helping to advance. So examples of those values are, and I'm going to go through these, I really am going to push hard for our group here today to think about research, not prescribing it, proposing it to you through these lenses. Number one value that I want to highlight is those that are most impacted by the research and the research questions that we're thinking through should be a part of the process. Gone are the days where the university, the ivory tower, is the place that should know best on how to address the issues in our communities, even if we ourselves are members of those communities. Because that's a power dynamic, right? That we know more than you do. So we can come in and tell you, this is what you should be doing. This is how we should be doing research. These are the areas that you should prioritize, right? Those most impacted by the research should be a part of the research process. We call that fancy multi-stakeholder approaches. No more drive-by research where I'm a faculty member and I say, I'm going to pick KGA as my data collection site. And I'm going to work it out with the executive director in spite of staff being resistant, because I'm going to wave around some money and say, I'm going to give you participant incentives, CSULB, for you to go get me 50 youth that I can interview. Without even bothering to ask you, is this going to benefit you? Is that going to work? Do you have questions that I can incorporate in that? Not treating you as an expert, as an asset, as a resource. I heard resources in here that actually should be incorporated in the initial design of the research. Second value or set of values is based on this asset-based approach, right? You and community has knowledge. Your everyday lives and experiences provide a wealth of knowledge that should be used, right? Maximized, used in the best sense of the word, right? Mutually, with reciprocity, all right? Not me just extracting the knowledge, right? What's the purpose of this research? How does it have impact back to the communities that we're serving and working with? Last set of values. Community partners in this process are leaders, co-educators, right? So we have a lot of work to do in that area. We are not the keepers of all knowledge. We are not the keepers of all assets and resources. We have assets and resources here, but so do our communities. So do you. So organizationally, think about your relationship with us as leaders in this process, co-educators in this process. And that's how we reflect that this is community-driven. We hear that a lot. Community-based, community-centered, community-driven. Well, in research, it's very explicit what we check off in terms of how you're involved in that process. And if you're not, and if we're not upholding these values, then we don't say it's community-based participatory and action research. And there's no knock on other research, but we're talking about here a community-driven lens. Okay, so let's go through these. 4 examples of process. And I'm going to introduce them as just very accessible. These are 4 components that no matter who you are on our campus, if you're doing research, you're doing these things. All right? So the first is research design, our research questions. What are we trying to answer through this approach, right? Think through, what do we want to answer to be able to advance our organizational missions? Second component of research that we're going to highlight here today is Dr. Taylor just kind of walked us through. All of you have data. What's the process that we use to collect data? And think about those values. Can you go back one more, Sarah? Those that are most impacted by the research are part of the process, not as subjects of the research, but as co-educators, co-leaders, designers, experts in the process. Dr. Sarro mentioned there was resistance in her staff, right? Youth have talents and gifts. So let's not just treat them as subjects in this process. Okay, let's move forward. So data collection, right? How do we think about data collection? And how do we build capacity to do this with mutual benefits? Third is analysis. Why would I presume that just because I have a PhD and I'm at Cal State Long Beach, that I'm the only one equipped to inform analysis of the data that we've collected or to frame the analysis? You all are the ones that are working with the populations and addressing my research area, right? So why wouldn't I draw on the expertise that we have here in the room and in our communities? So the analysis part. And then finally, because we do this in academia, we need a product, all right? Oftentimes we think about publications, but performances, policies, artistic expression, right? If we go to the College of the Arts, they're not going to be talking about labs, right? We're going to be talking about the Cole Conservatory in the College of the Arts. They're not going to be interested, they may be interested, but they're not going to use a method that doesn't apply to our visual and performing arts, all right? There may be different quote-unquote publications or essential research that someone in film and digital arts conducts, all right? So again, we're not talking about specific by discipline, right? There are all kinds of ways to disseminate and publish and use the product that comes out of this data collection and analysis. And then so let me go one-on-one, and then we're going to take a deep dive into two components here. So research design, research questions. If we don't start here, then we end up with data that some of you have either never used and or what makes you wonder, what other data do I need, right? Let's start with what are we trying to answer, which we call the research design or the research question. And is it responsive to community identified needs, issues, problems, as well as assets? So if I'm going to come up with a research project, Ishmael, on Black student achievement, wouldn't it make sense for me to check in with the folks that are actually doing work on Black student achievement? Or would you be cool with me coming to you and say, hey, I want to do a research project, Ishmael, you want to join me? Here's my question. Doesn't uphold those values, right, that we just covered. Next, data. So our process should build your organizational capacity to be able to collect and develop the tools with which we are going to use this data for. So Nancy, I'm gonna put you on the spot, Nancy. You distribute food as one of your activities. And you come back to me and Juan and say, Juan, and you've done it before, Nancy, so I'm gonna put you on the spot. I'm applying for this grant. Is there an opportunity to partner? And then my question back to Nancy is, hey Nancy, how many people are you serving? What zip codes, right? All of that stuff. You've already developed those instruments. I don't have to come and tell you, Nancy, here's what I propose you use to collect. Nancy's already got Excel files and all these other kind of files that can tell me, Juan, 70% of my food distribution program is in the 90813. Oh, I was right about that? Okay. So if we are going to engage in developing a research project, there's data that you already have and data that you want or need. Let's do that venture together, because as soon as the research is done, this is what used to happen. Juan Benitez would go back to the university, write it up, publish it, and then what were you left with? Nothing, right? So let's think about building your organizational capacity through the data collection process, because then you won't need Juan Benitez anymore, right? You'll come pull me in when you need me, right? And that's the way it should be. How do we leverage our university resources? Analysis. Community members are partners, and you help to frame and inform interpretations of the data. What are we going to do with this? It's great that it would sit in a journal, an academic journal on my end, and I get credit, and I get tenure, and I get promotion. That's fantastic, right? How do we then leverage, okay, but does this have an impact with the work that you all are doing? And am I using a lens where we're not have to shift anything? It's just the intent of what are we doing with this research, right? Why wouldn't I draw on your expertise as partners in this? And then lastly, dissemination. Where does it go? The research stays in and with community. And that doesn't necessarily mean physically stays with you, but that you don't ever hear from us again, you don't ever see this again. Dr. Sorrow just said that that research from 12 years ago is still having impact. It's still informing. It's still driving the initial reason why that research project was conceived in the first place. So community members are partners that help to design the product that comes out of this. And I'm calling it product because we always used to just say publication, right? If we go to the theater department, we could have a project around theater of engagement in and with our communities. That's a product, right? Performances are products informed by data and analysis, the dissemination of it. Who else is going to know about this stuff? Doesn't do your organization any good if you just file it in one of your cabinets as well. So what are those values that we are going to hold ourselves accountable to? Okay, so here it is, back to you. So we're going to take the next 20 minutes, and one of the members of our team is going to sit down with you, reflecting back on what data you have and or need, and what a community-based action research project would look like from your organization's perspective. What would a project, as I've described it, as you understand it, look like from your perspective? And I think two key questions for us are these. What research questions do you have, or would you like to be able to answer regarding the population that you serve and or the issue and or issues that your organization addresses? That's question number one. Start jotting it down. What research question or questions do you have or would like to be able to answer regarding the population that you serve and or the issue that your organization is addressing? I'm going to give you 10 minutes. Dr. Taylor, I only give you 5 on that. So examples here. And we, Sarah, Mitra, and I went back and forth. Should we give you an example of a question? And all of us agreed, no. Because then what we end up doing is prescribing to you, this is what a research question should look like. And guess what? If we shared it with you, many of you would draft questions that would look very similar to what we drafted for you. So there's no right or wrong way to develop questions here. You all have questions. So examples of populations may be, as part of your question, youth, seniors, immigrants, Black youth, girls in Orange County, whatever population you're working with and serving. Examples of issues may be these, right? But the issue could be anything. We were just talking about with Stellette, advocacy around students, children, families with disabilities. There's many issues there. It's not just one. So we'll start with that one, and then we'll come back to question number 2 for another 10 minutes. And it's, how would answering your research questions advance your organizational vision and mission, impact positively the communities that you're working with, and or impact the issue that your organization is trying to address? So the research has to have purpose. We can come up with all kinds of great questions. Is it going to positively impact any of these things? So that's why we call it action research. Where is it going? So let's take our first 10 minutes for that first question, and we'll sit down with you and walk you through that. Small groups, yeah, small groups. We've been in conversation with our Office of Research and Sponsored Programs as to how to maximize these conversations with our community partners. And I'll let Heather Barker from ORSP talk a little bit more about it. And so Dr. Simon Kim oversees our Office of Research and Sponsored Program. Some think of this arm as the money arm of the university, but it's really the research and money arm of the university. So in terms of grant opportunities, fundable projects, campus community collaborations, that's sort of the institutional arm of the university. So Dr. Kim sends his regrets for not being here today, but asked Heather if she could come in, check in, listen, but also share about what these potential collaborative scenarios might look like and how we are thinking through these very same ideas and issues that you all are bringing up and addressing. So, Heather, do you want to just sort of, nothing formal, I mean, I didn't ask Heather to do a presentation or anything, but just kind of share some thoughts on the work that they're doing at ORSP and how she sees connections to the conversations that we're having here.
Thank you. The presentation pulled up right here for you.
Thank you very much. My name is Heather Barker. We may have crossed paths at some point. So in addition to talking a little bit about our institution and the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs and how that is growing to be more deliberately community engaged, I am a professor of design. I lead the Human Experience Design Interactions program and the Immersive Design Research Lab at Cal State Long Beach, through which we do action research, as Juan has told before. So also technologies, but not only, community engagement. So I have worked for Long Beach Department of Health, doing human studies about what happens when one day cannabis is illegal and the next day it's not. So we make policy recommendations after engaging with people. Worked with the Office of Civic Innovation with Tracy Kalunga, who many of you may know, and we worked on Justice Lab, we worked on Clean Long Beach, we worked on economic equity for people who suffered disproportionately during the pandemic. So I have a lot of experience in community engagement with the city. I also work with Bloomberg Philanthropies, teaching other city leaders and innovation leaders how to engage their communities as well. So I come from that background, just so you can sort of put me in a category somewhere and you can see some strengths but many, many weaknesses. I just want to talk a little bit about how committed the university is to bringing this already strong legacy of action with the community and turning it into a pillar for our research development, for our grant funding, and for doing satisfying some of the goals of our Beach 2030 strategic plan. So I believe Juan talked about that a little bit earlier. I'm gonna, oh, excellent. Thank you, Mitra. So this is there's a fantastic website here. We also have my colleague, Robin, who is leading all of the future strategic initiatives for the campus. We're talking very specifically about within the Beach 2030 strategic plan, we have something embedded in there called Grand Challenges. So Grand Challenges, they are ambitious but achievable goals. So in order to start this, universities around the region, around the country, around the world, run most of their research and engagement through something called Grand Challenges. You may be familiar with some of the ones that UCLA has a couple. Some are very broad, some are very specific. I use the example University College London has 6 Grand Challenges, but what do we do at Cal State Long Beach that's different? Where do we have our impact? We have our impact in community. And I'm looking at you from the institutional standpoint, but you're looking at us as you're doing this incredible work and you have an entire university basically in your pocket to support that work. So we are a community, and I say these numbers, they're wrong, but they line up well. We have 4,000 faculty and staff, we have 40,000 students and 400,000 plus people working on shared goals. And we want to make those synergies as beneficial as possible. So obviously we're going to create industries and jobs of the futures. We are an institute of education. Pushing the frontiers of what we do, and the questions that you just asked are sometimes new questions. Like, we haven't heard these questions before, and if we can bring that into a research agenda, then we as an institution can lead research in that area. So we are thankful, grateful for that. And tackling the important the global but also local important problems of environment, food, housing, transportation, injustice, inequity, all of those things that we live and see, and you work to change every single day. And then something that unites this work, right? The language is incredibly important. Say, am I contributing to the grand challenge? We have to shape that language in a way that actually activates all those 4,000, 40,000, 400,000 people to feel like they're making change in their world and in their community. Okay, change the slide. So our contributions, we're going to contribute to these that have local impact, and this is where your work is so important. If we can prove it can work here, we have the potential to scale it. If we're able to prove we can scale it, we can bring in a lot more funding for that to happen. We're going to rally these research communities. Students want change. I always say I'm a Gen Xer, which means no one knows me because they forgot we existed. I went to the university, I studied architecture. I'm like, I'm going to go to university and build something big and shiny. It's going to be fantastic. And then I'm teaching millennials, and then I'm teaching Gen Z, and I am welcoming them saying, you want to build something big and shiny? They're like, we'd like to build change. And I'm like, okay, I'm so sorry. So you can see they want to make a difference. These students want to be part of the change in their community, and that's really embarrassing for me, but empowering as well, and I'm all in to help them with that. And they want to do that by doing hands-on research. Okay, go to the next slide. So here's where we start. This is nascent, right? This is the beginning of this. Office of Research and Sponsored Programs is looking to shape how we define the grand challenges, or co-create them, I should say. We are not defining them. We are pulling them out of the fabric of the institution, out of the community. We're looking to best practices and examples. So one of them that's a really good, has a short video, and then I will wrap up here just to give you an idea. It's from our colleagues at the University of Maryland. Could you click on the link?
Since our founding, the mission of the University of Maryland has been to serve humanity and impact the public good. Today, our purpose has never been more critical. We face emerging threats to our climate, to the global supply of food, energy, and clean water. Millions are affected by educational disparities, poverty, gun violence, and racial and social inequities. Our education, research scholarship, and creative activities must be designed to accelerate solutions to humanity's grand challenges.
So that's what grand challenges are really about. This is where this University of Maryland is talking about who are we as a university, what do we put our funding behind, and how do we engage with our community. They have $30 million. We hope to have $30 million, but again, we're at the very beginning of this, is to announce grant awardees at some point. Again, this is very early on. We want to co-create how we can do this to say, okay, we're satisfying these grand challenges. You will know from the Beach 2030, we share your same strategic goals. So it shouldn't be a heavy lift for you to say, yes, we're involved in this. You should already feel like the work you're doing is covered within one of the grand challenges that we develop. Combining community and research, building bridges for our children. You won't be able to read these quickly enough, but you'll see these initiatives have partnerships between, wait till the next one, multiple colleges, multiple community members, and other stakeholders. So grand challenges are grand. So this is, I think, helpful for understanding how does, and as designers, we like to combine things that are different and put them together, and you're like, whoa, that's a new thing, right? How can your organization work with your organization? How does that change the question or shape it, right? So we're looking at things that are big, that have big impact, but big impact only happens by the aggregation of a lot of small moves and small engagements that touch individual lives that then propagate throughout the system. So just because you're a small organization doesn't mean that you can't be part of a grand challenge. We just want to make sure that you're partnering well and that we're providing the resources that you need to partner maybe with someone that you hadn't thought about before.
So Heather, can I underline here the big research idea?
The big research idea, and I can share with you, and my colleague Robin and I, we had a co-creation session with the deans of the colleges. And so they're also putting out big research ideas, big grand challenges that they feel that their colleges and departments and centers and institutes and research groups are already addressing. Because this is new for us, we want to make sure that we're starting something that's already making impact. Like we want to pick up your initiative that's already ongoing. We're not asking people to change things or pivot, especially for the near term. We want to make sure that the work you're already done is made visible, because we know there's a ton of value all across this institution, in this city, and in business, and in our big organizations that affect our economies that are not seen, right? That's one of the biggest things, is to make it seen. So go to the next one. This was part of a different exercise, so we can go through this again. Okay, so what are we doing now? You can see this is a messy map. Some of you might love this visual and others will get itchy if you look at it. So it depends on your propensity for capturing complexity. What we're doing now is capturing what exists already. So this is going to be really important that we say where do the different colleges live? How are our different institutes connected to them? Who are their contacts? The College of Health and Human Services has already done a ton of work in this area. They have clinics and they have embedded communities and so forth and so on. So we can't, there's a principle in design called make hope visible. Sometimes you need to see it to say, oh, look, I'm only 1 degree of separation from this group. I didn't know that we were that closely, we're working with the same people, right? And this is a way that we're going to create this tool to sort of map out what's going on in our creative, our active, and our research ecosystem with the university, the city, and business and community groups that are making a difference. So that's it. So hopefully some of that might have made you think, oh.
So Heather, can I share one data point with you?
Yes.
And I'd love to, for Mitra to kind of just transition us to the next round of big potential research ideas. So let me share one thing with you, Heather, because you may want to say something about it. Okay. So through our center, we have 120 active partnerships that either have with community-based organizations in the area/region, right, depending on how we're defining region. In February, we invited 63 of those organizations that right now have either a service learning student and or academic intern placed with them through our center. So we convened whoever, the representatives from those organizations in February, and one of the areas that they lifted up that they want to see stronger collaborations on, strengthening partnerships, was around possible research opportunities. So then this is a representative strategic group of, I believe, 15 community partners, community organizations that wanted to further advance the community-based research conversation. So it's an iterative process. Folks are self-selecting in and out, but we have sort of a wide, to your point, a wider sort of net on who we're interacting with, whether it's service learning, whether it's community-based research, academic interns. And so really this group is our think tank for much of what you just described. So I just kind of wanted to give you a sense of who was in the room.
Yeah, that's incredibly helpful and informative, because each of you has what for a student engaging this kind of work is 6 degrees separation. Each of you shorten that to 1 or 2, right? Which is, I can't even explain how valuable that is to students, to be able to get close to the work they're wanting to do without having to start with sort of no network and no access. And I want to emphasize also that the Office of the President has a whole collaborative team that is also looking to business partnerships as well. So there will be some overlap there in terms of like placing people in service learning, but also placing people in internships. So we want to make sure that they feel the value of the engagement. Like they leave their research work within the community, their service learning, and they already feel like I'm stepping into a career that I'm passionate about. Thank you.
This is all gathering very well together. We could not ever plan this better without you in the room. I'm a storyteller. I'm going to tell you a story of little research happened in Cal State Long Beach. We went to the community, to those group of people that they were doing the service, and we asked them, like we had all of our students there, and we started asking questions, you know. We learned that the social workers and people that they're doing service for homelessness in the city, sometimes they have to approach individuals experiencing homelessness 17 times before they accept the service. And these people that they were doing the service, their question was, we wonder why people individuals that are experiencing homelessness not pick up the service? And that became our research question. And that became it became the research idea. With 28 students in 2 classes, we did service learning style class. These students during a semester had 20 hours of design, going back to the community and work with different people that they're working in this issue, bringing back their observation and their journals. And out of that, we were able to work with 3 government institutions, multi-service service center that is under Department of Health and Health and Human Services in City of Long Beach. We've worked with the Heart Department. It's a unit special in fire department that they have their unit only respond to homelessness issue. And quality of life officers. They are a unit of 2 officers in each. There are 4 areas in Long Beach that they are assigned to respond to issues related to homelessness because they got training. In addition to that, we learned that one of the issue of the people that they're not taking services is because they take services randomly in different places. So we asked them when we were talking with them who are they taking service from? We learned that our clients were taking service from organizations like Christian Outreach in Action. They were taking from Help Me Help You, Long Beach Rescue Mission, Urban Community Outreach. And at the same time, we politically, we had Proposition 47 happening, 57 happening. It was Measure H happening. It was Prop HHH happening. And they were talking about how to bring money to the city and how to distribute that. What I heard here was concern for our students, what they get from education, and the leadership they play as a change agent later. From that 28 students, 3 of them went to get a job related to homelessness. 3 graduate students did their master thesis on homelessness. One of our graduate students did a poster in the highest level, kind of like a competition of research and got the first prize with $500 thing. But at the end, this project changed their life. In every level that I'm connected with them still, they remember something and they say that. That's for students. Second, it showed me how service learning and little class as, it's one class within all the classes is offered. One class can have that much impact. It was only 20 hours of this student's academic life in the community that came back and did this report. Long story short, it was just a little thing that it happened in this university, but it changed life of 28 students, and it wouldn't happen if these students weren't connecting to the people like you. Every single person who helped us in that research, they helped this student to see themselves as a future leader. They saw themselves as a, change agent, and they learned from their research project. So I want to shift the attention to you guys that service learning and Center for Community Engagement is a great hub for community partners to connect with us. One of the things that we have done as a group was after the February 10th gathering we got your ideas of the need assessment. We went to different departments and we successfully certified 2 syllabi this semester to have students, students in those classes come and serve your community. So Dr. Ban here is from Department of Geography. And what we heard in that meeting was so many of the people, they were thinking about GIS mapping, map layering, and stuff like that. Her syllabi is certified for that, and we're going to have all the students that they're going to go to her class in a way connected to the community.
I'm
So
signing off on it today.
yes.
That class is being certified today.